Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me for this week's episode of When I Grow Up. On today's episode, it's my pleasure and honor to welcome my guest, David Hahn. Hey David, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thank you.
No, thanks for being here with me tonight and chatting with me about your job. So I'm just going to jump right in, David. Could you tell us what it is that you do?
Sure. So my title is a 3D character animator. And basically what I do is I do 3D animation on the computer. So basically, if you think of any like Disney or Pixar movies or any other 3D animated movie, what I'm doing is I'm taking those characters and I'm making them move and like moving their bodies, moving their faces, and giving them like basically, creating the illusion of life.
Okay, this is like I have so many questions because one, I'm a mom of two kids under the age of 5, so we watch a lot of animated movies.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And then like as I get, these are things you never think about while you're watching the movie as a kid. But now that I'm older, I watch and I'm like so amazed, right? Like by the storylines of these animations and just even like how things work. So I'm glad you're here because I have a lot of questions. But before we jump into that, can I ask you what your like a typical day for a 3D animator might look like?
Well, these days, since COVID happened, like most people are working from home in my industry. So for me personally, when I wake up, I'll get ready, and even though I'm working from home, I like to go outside to like a coffee shop that's like nearby and just kind of walk around a bit. And then when I come back to my apartment, it feels like I'm arriving to work.
Oh, that's good. I should do that.
Because like of course, it's really easy to just like, get up and just roll over to your computer because like your computer's right there. But I like that feeling of, like separating like home life and work life. So even though I'm still working from home, I feel like if I go out and grab a coffee and come back in, it feels like I'm like going to work.
No, that makes sense. That's a really good technique. You people should try that, whoever's listening. Okay, so you get into work, you arrive.
Yeah, so then I'll just, it doesn't sound very glamorous, but I'm basically on the computer all day, just animating. And there's plenty of meetings to go into. And yeah, it's not like a very, it's not a job where I'm very hands-on with a lot of stuff. It's mostly just like using software, 3D animation software on the computer. So
about how many like hours? I mean, I know you said that you have meetings throughout your day, I'm sure too, but how many hours would you say that you're like working on the animation part, like the actual like artwork and 3D animation?
It's a good question. Maybe like 5 hours of just like really focused work, I think. And then everything else goes into like meetings or just, taking a break.
Holy smokes. But do you work a typical like 8-hour day?
Yes. Yeah.
Yes, you try to?
I try to. I think I can get into this stuff a little bit later, but it's really easy in my industry to end up working longer than you're supposed to.
Well, yeah, I mean, I would imagine, especially because it's on the computer and you're at home. So, man, okay. So, I did a little bit of research. And I only did a little bit. So I don't want to pretend to know things, but I know that you did a lot of work on Into the Spider-Verse on Netflix. Is it Netflix?
It's not. Maybe it's out on Netflix now, but it was in the theaters before.
Oh, that's right. I did
Yeah.
not watch it. I'm sorry, but
Okay. No worries.
I need you to like, kind of brag about yourself right now. And no, but like, what was your role on this animation? Because my youth students, like, they love it. Like, they love it and they talk about it. And I was clueless when they're talking about it. And then I found out I was going to talk to you, and I was like, oh shoot, I should have watched it.
That's okay.
But like, what was your role on this film? And also, I also know that you won some sort of award, so you can't hide anything. Okay, you have to be honest.
Okay. So my role was a senior character animator on the movie, and I did a lot of shots. Do you know what shots are?
Yes.
In the movie? Yeah. So I worked on a lot of shots on the movie with Miles Morales, who's the main character, and I specialize in like physical animation,
Okay.
meaning like in the animation industry, like we typically separate like animation into like two categories, kind
Okay.
of broadly. There's like acting, which is like if it's like me and you talking, it's just a camera like shooting back and forth between characters having dialogue.
Okay. Yes.
And then there's like physical animation, which is more like, Spider-Man like swinging across the city or doing like physical feats and stuff like that. So I can do both, but I prefer to do like the more like action oriented stuff. And that was mainly what I worked on the first movie.
Okay, that sounds like all of the movie then, because I'm
No,
sure there's
no,
a
no.
lot of action. I'm sure there's a lot of action. Okay, so you have to explain this to me a little bit. So I'm curious to, maybe this is a silly question, but like why you prefer it over the acting animation? Is it just more exciting for you, or?
Yeah, that's basically it. Like
Okay.
it's just more, I'm just like a dude who grew up like watching like lots of action movies and like
Yeah.
I watched a lot of like Jackie Chan stuff with my dad
Yeah.
as a kid. So I tend to gravitate more towards like fun action oriented stuff.
Okay, so how like difficult is this like 3D anime? I know there's a software for it, but like I would imagine like how they move, the movement of like where they're going and stuff is difficult. Could you explain that a little bit? I know
Sure.
nothing. I know zero things.
Sure. So a good analogy I try to use when describing like what I do is like, do you know stop motion animation?
So like
Claymation?
yeah, like when it looks like there's a bunch of shots put together and they're moving like that.
Yeah. So like
Okay.
basically how stop motion works is like they take like a figure in real life and like pose it a certain way.
Uh-huh.
And then they'll take a picture. And then they'll pose it again and take another picture.
Right.
And that keeps happening until you put all those pictures together and it looks like the character is either walking or doing something.
Yes.
So it's essentially the same thing, but just inside of a computer. So in my computer, I can move the camera around so that I can look at any part of the character. I can move the character's arms. I can move their wrists. I can move their eyebrows or their jaws. Like basically anything an actual person can do, I can manipulate that part of the body.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, I think that's the best way I can describe how animation works in 3D.
So like you're not actually drawing these animations.
No. So
Okay.
we have so we start off with drawings, like with concept art. And this is when like a 2D designer is coming up with like the visual idea for like how a character looks like. So there's a lot of drawing, a lot of paintings and stuff like that. Then once that is all sort of approved by the directors, that then starts to get modeled in 3D or sculpted in 3D rather.
Wow.
So
Like
they use all
physically,
those-
like physically?
Sometimes physically, but
Okay.
mainly in the computer.
Oh, okay.
So there's ways to sculpt characters, and it looks like, like it's real, and you can move the camera around, and it looks like an actual sculpture. And they make that based on these drawings that the concept artists make.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so I'm going to be very broad here,
Okay.
but after that, um, the animators can take that model and move the body around, move the jaw, eye, any parts of the face, even down to like the fingers. Like we can manipulate like everything, and uh, and yeah, that's how we.
So, like,
do stuff.
okay.
But you have to have like, of course, you have to have like a good eye for like movement, like just natural, like human movement.
Right.
And like, because like, because we're around people all the time, like every day, like every hour, we see people walking, we see people interacting. You kind of have to like tap into that. And it's funny because like if you see something animated correctly, it looks fine and you don't really say anything about it. But once it looks wrong, you immediately notice that it's like, oh, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel like how a human would walk.
Natural.
Yeah, it doesn't feel natural. You can just kind of tell. So when people don't say anything, that means it's a good sign.
Right. So like essentially, like you are the actor.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
Because I mean, you have to. I'm assuming you're looking at a script or some sort, and you're having to decide, right? Like what the character's doing.
So we get what the animators get is like we have the audio for the voice actors, like speaking their dialogue. Sometimes it's not like the actual actor, like they couldn't schedule it, so sometimes they just get someone else to like do like a fill-in. We call it scratch. But usually we have audio that we can work with, and based on that, like I would say like 99% of the time, like the animators would film themselves acting. So like we'll have the audio playing on loop of a character saying a line, and then we will film ourselves like acting that out and pretending that we're saying the line.
Oh, wow.
So when you say that we are the actors, like that's 100% true, because we film ourselves, and then once we feel like we have a good take, we're like, oh, that feels like how the character would act or move. We take that film into our software, and then we use that as reference for how we animate our characters.
Really?
Yeah.
That is fascinating. Oh my goodness. So much work goes into this.
It's a lot of work. Yeah.
Okay, so like was there, I don't really know, and again, I feel so terrible that I was not prepared the way that I should be for this interview, but
No, it's okay.
in Into the Spider-Verse, like was there a particular scene or scenes that are like were more challenging than others? Because like I don't know, I just feel like if there's more movement in one scene, like it's more work, right? Is it not? I don't know.
It depends on. So the difficulty depends on like what the character is doing.
Okay.
So immediately, like when you were asking that question, like something that I worked on came to mind. And the idea for the shot, or what they were asking me to do, was like the main character Miles, he falls out of his dorm room window, but since he's a Spider-Man, like he can stick to walls.
Oh,
so
okay.
And this is when he's like first learning his powers, so he doesn't really know how to control it. But he falls out his window, but instead of falling down, he's like stuck to the wall, like perpendicular. This is the wall and this is him.
Okay.
And like he has to walk around the corner of the building, and like there's a bunch of birds that fly by, and he's not having a good time. He's figuring out how to use his spider powers.
Right,
And
right. He's probably like stumbling a little bit.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
And so that was probably one of the toughest things that I had to animate, because I looked at that shot and I was like, how am I supposed to do this? Like, I can't stick to the side of a building. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do?
So like basically what you're saying is like, how are you supposed to create something that you've never experienced and don't know what the like mannerisms are supposed to look like that?
Yeah, like how are you supposed to do something that you yourself physically can't do?
Right.
Like if you can't catch it on tape or video, or nobody else can, like how do you even go about creating that?
So how did you navigate that? Just trial and error?
I did end up shooting reference, but I wasn't, going off the side of a building or anything.
Are you sure?
Yeah, no, I'm totally okay. I wasn't injured or anything. But I basically treated the ground that I was walking on like that was the side of the building.
Oh,
if that makes sense.
Yes.
So I found a way to do it without hurting myself.
Oh, okay. So you just filmed it on the ground, pretending it was the side of the building.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's smarter.
Basically, like if you see something like in an animated movie that's like physically, it's like it looks really complicated.
Mm-hmm.
Like wow, it would take like an insane athlete to be able to do something like that.
Right.
That's usually pretty difficult to animate.
I see. So like flying through the air and jumping off buildings and swinging through a city,
yes.
Like those things.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Oh man. So like, do you have to like study other like, I don't know, video too, to kind of see what other people like their gestures would be and stuff?
Yeah. So a lot of the times what we'll do is, so if they cast, for example, I don't know, like Tom Cruise to be a voice actor for one of the characters, what we'll do is we'll research a lot of clips of Tom Cruise in movies and see his mannerisms, see how he acts, like his facial expressions.
Yeah.
And we try to incorporate that into his character's movement.
Really? Okay, so that makes a lot of sense to me because I often feel a lot of times, especially with newer animated movies,
you
like
kind of
the voice actor is very similar to the animated person.
Yeah. Well, what they also do is a lot of the times the designers and the 3D modelers, when they're creating the character, they keep in mind the actors' like attributes, like physical attributes, and just how they look like. And so sometimes like they incorporate some of how the actor looks into the 3D character.
Interesting.
So an example that I like to use, not everybody agrees with me on this, but I usually put my foot down because I can see it very clearly. It's like, have you seen Despicable Me?
Yes.
Do you know the main character, Gru? It's Steve Carell.
Yeah, no, it's very similar to Steve Carell.
Yeah. So he looks a lot like Steve Carell, even though he's just like weirdly proportioned.
No,
cartoon.
But like his facial features, even his nose, I see it.
Yeah. So that's a case of like the designers incorporating Steve Carell's look into the character.
I mean, for me, what comes to mind, one of my favorite Disney movies is Tangled. And I think she looks just like me, like very similar to Mandy Moore, like her mannerisms, gestures, everything. And I'm like, oh gosh, like, and then I'm like, oh, like, do they do that on purpose, or do they like draw the person first and then hire the actor?
No, it is on purpose, like because it's sort of like it helps to like bring everything together.
Right.
Like it would be weird if like you had a voice actor voicing a character, but the character didn't look like how they sounded.
That makes sense.
So yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Well, I'll probably ask you more questions about your process and stuff, but I am curious, David, to how this all started for you. Like, is this like if you could even take me back as far as high school, like, you know, were you always like actually, I guess I should ask, do you need to be like artistic to be a 3D animator?
Not necessarily, because I know animators who don't really know how to draw that well.
Okay.
It's more a sense of like understanding movement,
Okay.
like understanding like human movement and like physics, like how a ball looks like when it
Oh,
bounces and
interesting.
stuff.
Okay. But is that like something that's relevant like today? Like, before when there before computers,
Mhm.
like it was different, right?
So before computers, there was like 2D animation.
Uh-huh.
And in that case, yeah, you do need to know how to draw.
Draw, right. Okay, okay. I was just
Um,
curious.
yeah. But there are a lot of principles in animation that transfer over that don't necessarily require drawing ability.
Mm-hmm.
There are principles that carry over from 2D animation to 3D animation like perfectly.
Mm.
So there are lots of people who used to work in 2D animation, but then switched over to 3D. And aside from having to learn software and stuff like that, they kind of like, it clicked for them immediately because you're using the same, I guess, like set of rules. Like, I don't know if that's the best way to describe it, but
No, I think I get it.
yeah, it's like a really dumb way to describe it, I guess, is like if you're doing math on paper,
Uh-huh.
you're using a pencil and paper,
Uh-huh.
but then you switch to, I don't know, using something. I was going to say a calculator, but then I realized the calculator just does all the work for you.
No, but I get what you're saying. It just translates well as what
Yeah,
like
it
a lot of the
translates
principles.
a lot of the principles and ideas. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. That's good to know because I feel like I did feel that way. Like what you were saying, like, oh, maybe you don't necessarily have to be a good at drawing and artistic for you to be a 3D animator. My question was, yeah, can you take me back to the beginning? Like maybe even high school? Like, is this something you always wanted to do or how did it start for you?
Sure. I think I was always just sort of, in my case, I can draw and I decided to go into animation. But ever since I was a kid, like I was always pretty artistic. I was always drawing and had sketchbooks and stuff. Even through high school, like I think that's when I started getting more serious about drawing.
Okay.
And my mom was also an artist when she was growing up and she went to art school. So I think it was kind of natural for her to want to support my passion.
Oh, that's awesome. I feel like usually it's the opposite.
I know. I was lucky. I was very lucky in that regard. But so, she can see that I liked art and that I was drawing and stuff. So she sent me to like an art hagwon, like when I was in high school, to sort of like help me build my portfolio and stuff. And yeah, I'm just talking about it out loud. I realize how lucky I am.
That's great. Yeah, no, truly. Because like, and I think it's good for people to hear too, especially in the Asian American community and for my listeners, that, I mean, if it were the opposite, I'd be asking you like, oh, how did your parents feel and how did they end up supporting you? But what a blessing it is that your mom was able to do that for you.
It was, yeah. And yeah, so I just always really liked drawing, watching cartoons and playing video games and stuff. And that sort of like made me want to go to like a specific art school that was in Manhattan, New York. And they had a 3D program. And because like I drew a lot, I liked art, but I also liked like 3D movies and like video games and stuff that had a lot of 3D them.
Okay. Okay.
I felt like that school was like perfect for me because they had a 3D program that I can get into.
Wow.
So I applied to that school and I I got in. Um, I actually applied to multiple schools, and some people probably like, well, some people did think I was being dumb for doing this, but like I applied to like maybe 3 or 4 schools,
Uh-huh.
and the one that I decided to go to was like technically like the least renowned.
I
Like
see.
the other schools were actually like way better art schools.
Oh, interesting. But you went to that place because of the program they had there?
Yeah, because they had like a good 3D program. The other schools were awesome, but it mostly focused on like fine art and illustration, and they didn't
Ah.
really have as much of a 3D program there. So,
Gotcha. And sorry, what school was this?
oh, sorry, this is a School of Visual Arts
In Manhattan.
in Manhattan.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so what do you need like a you need a portfolio to get into art school, right?
yeah, you do.
Okay. I heard that's like kind of a big deal, like the portfolio part.
It is, and that's why my mom sent me like to like an art class after
Uh-huh.
school, was to help me build my portfolio. Some schools, like the ones that I decided not to go to,
Mm-hmm.
they're pretty like hardcore with their
Oh man.
portfolios. Like you need to have like this many pieces, and like the quality needs to be, it has to meet a certain standard.
Right, right. I heard like you even
Um,
have to have like different mediums too sometimes or
mhm.
something.
Yeah, so like they like to see, variety in like the type of art that you do, just to know that like what you're capable of, basically.
Mm,
So like one piece could be like all graphite pencil, another
mhm.
piece could be like a collage where you like rip pieces of magazines and like make a picture out of that. Another piece can be watercolor or any other type of paint.
Mm.
It's better to show them like that you can do all these things rather than
Mhm.
just focus on one medium.
I'm sure it's like been a minute since you applied to art school in
It
undergrad, but
has.
um, I'm wondering, do you have any advice maybe for someone that is like, you know, the school year starts in August, and if they're seniors, I'm sure they're gonna or maybe if they haven't already started their portfolios, like, do you have any advice for somebody that is like really considering going to art school, building their portfolio this year?
um, Start your portfolio as soon as possible.
Yeah, good advice. Yes,
um,
don't
and
procrastinate. Is what you're-
yeah, I would say like other than that, like try to get help from like
Mm.
either like an outside art class program or your art teacher from the school that you're in.
Mm.
They're usually pretty willing to help you build your portfolio.
Yeah, that's
Um,
good.
yeah, I wish I had more tips, but I think those are pretty important.
No, yeah, yeah. I think even just the get help part is like, at least knowing my personality, if I were doing that, I'd be like, I don't need help. But the
Yeah,
get help part is good.
you should definitely get help, because like trying to do that all by yourself, like although maybe you can do it by
Mm,
yourself, like it can be pretty overwhelming if you're just putting that burden on your shoulders alone.
sure. Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, it's never a bad thing to ask for help.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so you get into art school and you go to the place that you want to go. Was it everything you thought it would be?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I have nothing but good memories like at School of Visual Arts.
Mm,
Um, the 3D program that I went into was kind of a broad program.
okay.
So instead of just focusing on animation, there's all these other aspects of 3D that you could focus on if you choose, like sculpting, like
Oh.
sculpting characters, or there's like lighting which is a whole other thing. Like, after animators like animate the characters and like the shot is ready, like we basically give that to another department, and then another department, like the lighting department, has to, in 3D, they have to take lights and light the shot like you're on a real set. Like, so if you go on a movie set, like when you're looking at just the TV, like everything looks perfect. But if you pull back, you'll see that it's a set that they're on. You'll see all these different lights that are placed in specific areas to make the characters look as appealing as possible. So there's all these other different areas that you can focus on in 3D. But I ended up deciding to focus on animation because that was like the one area that I felt really passionate about after exploring all the other areas.
Wow. That's really, wow, what a great school. Like
That's
really,
good.
because I feel like yeah, I mean, it seems like they give you a lot of opportunity to explore like what it is that you actually want to do.
Yeah.
It's really cool. Okay, so is that program just a regular 4 years like bachelor's program?
Yeah. So the first year, we call it the foundation year. It might have changed now because it's been a while since I was in school. But the first year is mostly focusing on your foundational areas of art. So there's a lot of like life drawing, lots of classes that don't actually involve 3D, just to kind of like get your feet wet.
Okay.
And then the second year is when they actually throw you into the 3D software.
Okay.
And then that's when you have all these classes and you're doing all these different things. And then that's when you sort of get a sense of like, what do I want to focus on? What do I prefer? And then by junior year is when people have decided what they want to focus on.
Gotcha.
And then senior year comes, and senior year is all about working on your thesis, which is like a 2-minute short piece that you work on.
Wow.
With like a fully modeled, animated, and lit short movie.
What did you do? Do you remember?
I do. It was like a little piece called Alien Abduction, and it had like a cute little alien character trying to abduct a cow. It's very old. And
is that somewhere on the internet? Can I find that?
Maybe. It is, but I'm usually kind of embarrassed to show it because it's been years.
Oh no, I'm sure it was great. I'm sure it was wonderful.
I'll dig it up. And I'll
okay,
send it to you
I can't wait to see it.
later.
Okay, so you graduate, and then like, I'm assuming with such a great 3D program, this school must have a good reputation for its students. So was it easy for you to get right into the industry, or how was that for you?
So for me, so in New York, which is where I grew up and was living and where I went to school, there's actually quite a lot of small companies that work on commercials.
Oh, okay.
Like either commercials or like TV shows, like, because even TV shows have like some 3D elements that they need, like some special effects or something.
Okay.
And so when I graduated, I had like lots of opportunities to work at these smaller studios. And I was basically freelancing at these places for like maybe 2 months at a time.
Oh, okay. Okay, wow.
And it was a great way for me to sort of get my feet wet and just get used to working in a work environment.
Right,
Because I
right.
never actually worked with a team or anything like that. So that's what I did personally for a handful of years. I just worked on these commercials and stuff. Sometimes there's like commercials that are, all done in 3D with like cartoon characters and stuff. And that's mostly what I worked on. And after a while, I felt like, I could I had gotten good enough in my craft to be able to work on movies. And so I applied to Sony Pictures Imageworks, which is in Vancouver, Canada.
Right.
Which is like on the other side of the continent in a different country. So I decided to go there, and I worked there for about...
So you moved to Vancouver?
I did, yeah.
Oh my, okay.
I worked there for a few years, worked on a handful of movies.
Like what? You can't just you can't just pass over that, okay? You just told me you worked for Sony Pictures Imageworks, so I'm like, you can't pass over
that. So in the order that they came out, the movies I worked on are Angry Birds, Storks.
What? Okay, Angry Birds, Storks, yes.
Angry Birds, Storks. The third one I'm not very proud of.
Why?
It was the Emoji Movie.
Oh, I never saw that.
Good. It's fine. You don't need to watch it.
And the reason I didn't is because, this is not appropriate for my children, so I'm not going to watch it with them. So
that's totally fine.
Okay. Why were you not proud of it? Is it not a good movie?
Oh, just the idea for the movie itself is terrible. It's
I see.
It's like, you're scraping at the bottom of the barrel at that point.
Storks was really good.
Storks was good. I loved working on that.
Storks was really good.
Yeah.
And then was there anything else?
And then after that was Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse.
Okay. That's something to be proud of, man.
that is, of course, like what I'm most proud of after having worked there. And so after that was like about 4 years. I decided I kind of wanted to, bring it back a little bit, like take it easy, because it's pretty intense working on features back to back like that.
Yeah, that's crazy.
So then I was just hopping all over the place, but then I went back to New York and I went back to freelancing like I was doing before.
Just because you kind of felt like you needed a break?
Needed a break, yeah. And like time was flying by like really fast. And I was like, I need to just slow things down and, figure out life and stuff like that. So I went back to New York, freelanced for a little bit. And then I decided to come to Irvine, which is where I am now, and work at Blizzard.
The gaming company?
The game company, yeah.
Oh.
Because they create their own 3D cinematics for their games.
I don't know, but I kind of know. Like my husband plays a little bit of games, but I can just imagine. Like,
so they have like they release these like crazy awesome like trailers for their games.
Yeah, those I've seen. They look like movie trailers.
Yeah. So
like they just pop up on my feed sometimes. But.
Yeah. So Blizzard has their own team that works on those trailers and stuff.
Wow.
And so that's where I decided to go and work.
That's a change of pace a little bit, no?
Yeah.
Because like they're shorter.
Yeah, it was nice. It was nice.
Oh man.
But then I sort of got asked to come back to Sony because they were working on the second Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse movie, which is what I'm working on now.
Oh, wow. How exciting. Yeah. So you don't work for Blizzard anymore?
No, it's a lot of hopping around.
Is that normal in the industry, though?
Unfortunately, yeah. It is kind of normal. A lot of animators tend to go from place to place. It's very... there are places where, they have like full-time people that they just keep. But a lot of the studios tend to hire and let go artists based on projects. So like,
sure.
It's like project by project. They'll hire people. Once the project is done, they'll let them go. And it's not like because, the artists are like terrible animators or anything. It's just like, well, the project's done. Like, that's it. Like, unless there's something else that they can immediately roll onto
I see.
afterwards.
So like maybe this is a dumb question, but like do animators between different animators have like different styles? Like can you tell?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, there's different styles. There's like just broadly speaking, some people tend to animate more cartoony, which
Okay.
involves a lot more like, if you think of like Looney Tunes, just
Ah.
characters are like bouncing everywhere.
I
They're
see,
like
I see.
they feel very elastic and like they
Mm-hmm.
can squash and stuff. Another style is like more realistic,
Mm-hmm.
which is kind of what you would see in like a live action movie. If you see like a giant monster like destroying buildings and stuff, that's not cartoony at all, right?
Right,
Like if you think of like Jurassic Park or something like that,
Ah.
that's all like 3D animation as well, but that's a way more realistic take on animation.
Gotcha, yes.
That takes into account like how actual physics works, how heavy a character feels and stuff.
Fascinating.
So there are different styles, and though animators work with different styles, they tend to be flexible because whatever project they're working on determines what style they should animate in.
Got ya. Okay.
So you can't work on like a Jurassic Park movie and be like, oh, I'm going to animate in my cartoony style. Because then like everyone's going to be like, oh, that's not how dinosaurs move.
But I'm as an animated 3D animator yourself, like you mentioned before, like you have a preference sometimes. Like do do you usually have a preference to like what movies you work? I guess sometimes you don't have a choice, but what movies you work on?
Well, if we were animating stuff on our own, like our own personal stuff, then that's when you would probably see like people's styles and stuff.
I see. Okay. That makes sense. So like, oh, I just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. But
Okay.
man, this is all like extremely fascinating, and I think I'm wondering like about your process, because you said you did all these movies back to back, and you just told me too earlier that you work on these animations almost like 5 hours a day. I can't even imagine sitting at a computer for that long. But what is the most challenging thing for you about being a 3D animator?
It's a great question. Probably at this point, like managing like my energy levels, because in our industry, like in order to do a good job, like you have to be passionate about the work.
Right.
That's kind of a necessity. Like in order for, like if you want to do exceptional work, like you need to be passionate about it. But there's a risk in doing that because it's not like whatever work we submit just gets accepted right away, right? There's always notes that we get or changes and stuff. Right. And how it works is basically the more passionate you are, the more you're putting yourself at risk of being like disappointed or devastated when like,
they don't like it.
When they don't like it,
oh
or
my
when they
gosh,
ask for a
how
change.
Horrible.
It's pretty grueling sometimes because like, you'll work on something for days and be like, yeah, I feel like this is it. Like I think they're gonna love it.
Yeah.
And then you show it to them and then they just completely rip it apart. Or they're like, yeah, no, this isn't the idea we wanted. Like you kind of have to change this or even start over in some cases. And that's like, when you've put that much passion and energy into something, like
you just want to cry.
yeah. It's not great.
Oh man, that sounds terrible.
Well,
I mean, okay, so I studied like film and mass media arts in college, and so right out of college, I don't do this anymore, but right out of college, I like did some post work, like in editing and stuff. And then
cool.
I hated my life because like the revisions, and then like my personality is like a perfectionist, right? So I'm like, it's supposed to be just a rough draft, but I can't do that, you know? And then like I put everything into it. I'm up late nights in this dungeon of a place, and then like they tell me like they want me to fix something. I'm like, what do you mean fix it? You know, like, what do you mean? And I like was so angry, but then like it's not the same. I feel like it's not the same capacity and
It's
thing
the same
as your
idea.
thing, but I can relate to that. So I ended up working in live sports television after that, and it was great because it was one and done. Like my jobs were done at the end of the show,
Right.
and I was a replay producer, so I was still working in editing, but it was like after the show, if I made a mistake, it's like, well, okay, next
Like,
show.
you only get one go at it.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
it.
But okay, that's
Right.
super frustrating. I can't imagine that. So like so what do you do? Do you like take breaks, or what do you do? How do you
It's interesting because I'm still figuring it out. But like you have to like you just have to keep that in mind, like everything that I just said, like in the back of your head. Like yes, you do need to be passionate about your work, but like don't become like overly obsessed, you know, because then that's just, it's not healthy. You have to have a level of like
sad, David.
well, at the end of the day, like here's the thing, like at the end of the day, we're not creating like our own movies. Like we're creating this for someone else. It's another person's vision, and we're getting paid for that.
That's true.
So it's a service that we're providing.
Yes.
But you know, having said that, it is really hard to kind of keep a balance of being passionate, but also like keeping your distance a little bit. Like you have to like sort of balance that out and find a sweet spot. But it's really hard. Like just being an artist in general, like, you know, that's passion is what it's all about.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
So it's tough.
That's good though, man. Oh, that would be so frustrating. I can
It's
especially at this caliber, you know, like of like artwork and animation and just work that goes into it. It's like crazy to me. Okay, so with that being said, what do you love most about your job?
It's just really satisfying, like when things do work out. Just the whole creative process and animation in general, it's just really fun and satisfying to me, because like you're taking this like essentially like a dead puppet and you're bringing it to life. Like you're making other people believe that this character, this person is alive and is talking and is actually moving and stuff like that. And not enough people in my industry like realize, I mean, they do, but I don't think they stop and think about it as much as they should. That's kind of like insane what we do, like making viewers and other people believe that these characters are actually like real.
Yes, exactly. Like with real personalities, like literally creating life into these pictures. Yeah, it's pretty incredible. I remembered my question when I said that I lost my train of thought. You said that you were working in New York and you felt like you were at a place where you felt you were experienced enough to kind of start applying to these bigger companies and stuff. I guess my question was like how does one become a better 3D animator?
Well, there's practice, you know, you just do it over and over. But also I think this probably applies to anything, but when you are animating, like, and you want to get better, like you have to do so like while consciously thinking of getting better. You can't just kind of like do the same thing over and over without really thinking about it. Like you have to like go into the work with the idea that you want to get better. And so you're making more focused, more conscious decisions that move you towards that goal rather than just, kind of going on like autopilot.
Right. And like just like doing what you think you know already.
Yeah.
But I see.
Yeah. And that and like
it's good about life.
yeah. It's also just like the fun part about getting better as an animator is like you just need to watch a lot of stuff. Watch lots of movies, watch lots of like animated movies and stuff. Like the more you watch, like the more you absorb that stuff, the more that comes out of you, like in your work. Like it's kind of like the same thing as like you are what you eat, except you just translate that to like what you're watching all the time. The more you watch, like the better your eye becomes at like catching certain things, or it's training your eye to figure out why something moves the way it moves.
Oh my gosh, I will never watch anything the same ever again.
Well, I mean, don't take it too literally, I guess.
No. I told you I was a film major. So after my first few film classes, I was like, oh my gosh, nothing will ever be the same. So, okay. Yeah, that's really good. I feel like that was great advice for just my life in general, like just a growing mentality. So like I said, I did Google you. And I feel like this is the same David Hahn. I'm pretty sure it's you. I was reading something really fascinating about even just what you said. I think it applies to this like conversation is like there was a scene in Spider-Man that in the article, it said that you had adapted it from a different animator in Japan. Is this you? Is this not right?
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah, it was
it was like something about how like the character. Oh man, it was like the character is moving, but the scenes are changing or something.
Yeah, okay. I know what you're talking about.
What is that? What is that?
So it would be this isn't me like trying to force you to watch the movie.
No, I'm gonna watch the movie. I'm gonna watch it after this.
But it would be helpful if you saw the movie first, because then you would understand this better.
Okay.
But the animation style for Into the Spider-Verse has a very different look compared to what you see in like Disney or Pixar movies.
Okay.
Into the Spider-Verse is animated like on twos, which essentially means that the characters move every 2 frames.
Oh, okay.
So instead of like being like one frame, it's like one frame.
Oh, okay. I think I kind of get it.
Yeah, because that's how 2D animation is. In 2D animation, you don't draw every single frame because that's so much time and it's extremely meticulous. So in 2D animation, they draw a frame and then they keep it there for another frame and then they go to the next drawing. And it still looks animated, still looks like it's moving and it has life and stuff like that. So that's what we tried to incorporate into our movie. And this might start getting a little technical, so I apologize.
No, don't apologize. I love it. Keep going.
But, one of the problems that we were running into was a strobing effect when we were animating on twos.
Okay, so like when you say strobing, I imagine like light strobing. What is like? But what does that mean?
Not lights, but basically like. How do I explain this? If I had a moving camera, if a camera was like panning from like left to right,
okay,
and a character was moving on twos, which means like one frame hold, one frame hold. If you imagine the camera moving, there's that frame where the character is held, in the screen space,
Uh-huh.
the character is still going to be moving a little bit because their feet are like stuck to the ground. They're not really moving.
Okay.
And that tends to have a not so great effect on the eyes.
Eyes. Okay. That
It's
makes
a little like
sense.
something's attacking your eyes, and you're just like, why is it doing that?
Uh-huh.
And in 2D animation, you don't get that problem because
Mm.
you're working with cells and paper. So when you draw a character on one frame and then you hold it for another, it's just a piece of paper that's stuck to the screen.
Right.
So that character on a held frame isn't going to move out of place or anything.
Okay.
And so we were running into this problem, and I remember doing some research and asking some friends about this stuff. And I eventually ran into this Japanese 3D animated show that was also animating the show on twos.
Okay.
And they had solved the problem by basically emulating 2D animation, which means like once a character moves on one frame, on the held frame, instead of having a weird, like jarring strobing effect, the character stays in screen space while the background keeps moving. So when I saw that, I was like, well, we should be doing that because we're trying to do the same thing.
Right.
So then I brought it up to the team, and then we decided to sort of go with that route. It's really hard to explain.
No.
With just words.
What I was going to say was that is extremely fascinating, and I cannot wait to watch this movie.
Okay.
Okay. Wow, that's really cool. So, I mean, I bring it up because I feel like even what you were just saying too about like wanting to be a better animator, wanting to always learn and grow, and like watching other people, watching other things, and learning what it looks like and how to be better is exactly what worked for this movie, it sounds like. And that's really cool.
Yeah.
Was there anything that I didn't ask you that maybe you wanted to share with people that maybe are thinking about wanting to go into 3D animation, or just a creative in general, or just life advice?
It's a great question. I would just say it's not something new. Like we already kind of touched upon this, but like if anybody out there is like, thinking about going into this industry, like it is like very creatively satisfying, but it's like you really do have to like manage your energy levels because it can be very taxing on you because like first of all you're just on the computer all day, and like if you're a young person, you'll be okay, right? But like once you like go into your 30s and you start getting older, like just being on the computer all day isn't good for you. Like you have to like make sure you take care of your physical health, so like going to the gym, and mental health, which would require taking breaks, making sure you drink water, and just not getting too obsessed with your work, which is very easy to do.
Right.
I remember like when I was in my 20s, like working in this industry, like I had so much energy. Like I still felt like I was like in college, like in terms of how long I could work or how long I could stay up. And so the thought of having, a cap to my energy levels just didn't exist. Like if I needed to work late, I would just do it and I would feel fine. But nowadays, like I'm very conscious of how limited my energy is. And like I even sort of like visualize like I have like this tank of energy, and it's like I'm getting better at like being able to visualize how much I have left throughout the day.
Oh gosh.
I'm like, okay, if I do this amount of just pure focused work, I know I'm only going to have this much left. I need to make sure I have like 20% left for like when I'm just home, just chilling.
Right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's hard, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like a big thing that I would try to tell people about if they're thinking about going into the industry. But there are like highs, because like, you know, if you work on a great movie like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, just like, it's just very rewarding to see the movie do well. Like it won an Oscar. Like,
yes. Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah. I mean, congratulations to the whole team. Like,
yeah.
So yeah, it's rewarding. There's highs and lows. Like the highs are very high, the lows are low, kind of thing. Yeah.
No, that's great advice. I think, but you know, like, it is good advice for your career, but it's also good advice for life things. you know, with what you just said, a question came to mind just out of curiosity. So like, are 3D animators paid like by the project that is done? Like, for example, you said you work through the night sometimes. It's not like you're paid hourly, right? Or how does it work?
It depends on where you're working. Some places you'll just get like a full salary and it'll just be full time. Other places is project based and you get paid hourly. So if we do work past certain hours, we do get OT overtime for that, which is nice. So yeah, I would just say it depends on where you're working.
Gotcha. Okay. Oh, that's nice that you get overtime. Some people just like, you know, because the effects of the pandemic is like, it's been difficult for a lot of people to separate their work life and their home life.
Yeah.
And they just keep working. Like
I know. I'm totally guilty of doing that.
So like before the pandemic, you went into an office then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So working from home was not a thing like at all, like in 3D animation in our industry. And then once COVID hit, like, you know, well, we had to work from home, obviously. And now it's sort of becoming like a more hybrid thing where if you want to work home, you can. If you want to work in the office, you can.
I see.
Yeah.
I'm sure working at the office though, like it would, with other coworkers, I feel like it would be more like, I don't know, exciting.
It is. Well, for me it is, but like, you know, everybody's built differently.
Yeah.
Some people prefer to just like be by themselves.
I see.
Some people who, especially people who have like families, tend to prefer being at home better because they can just, you know, manage everything better at home.
That's true.
But yeah, so it's interesting where our industry is headed in terms of like working from home, working from the office.
Well, man, thank you so much for your time. I think I could probably sit here for a long time and ask you more questions, but I'm not going to do that. I hate to put you on the spot, David, but if there's somebody listening that maybe has questions about your work or just the industry or art school, would you be open to me connecting you with them?
Sure. Yeah, just send them my email.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. Congratulations again on Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. And thank you for your time and your expertise. I was extremely educated today on a lot of things. So
no problem.
Guys, if you have any questions about this episode or would like to be connected with David, please feel free to reach out to me through DM on social media, or you can email me at podcastwigu@gmail.com. Thanks, guys. Until next time. Thanks, David. Bye.
Thank you.